Good morning.
Good morning.
This is special
I know. Individual
special audience. Fantastic, wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Interesting. The story of English grammar is very interesting. In the 16th century, the Romans, the Italians, realized that their language was changing quite fast, and wanting to ascertain it and make sure it wasn't going to change anymore, they set rules. Now, the way they set the rules was to describe what's happening in Latin. The description was immaculately clear and exact. In the 17th century, the French realized that their language was changing, and they wanted to ascertain the language and make sure it didn't change anymore, perhaps to immortalize their own writings and so on, because they realized that the language was changing quite fast. In the 18th century, the British realized that their language was changing quite rapidly. Actually, in the 18th century, English had gone through the Old English period from 850 to 1100, the Middle English period from 1100 to 1400. Chaucer died in 1400, so all of Chaucer's writing was in the end of the Middle English period. And then from 1400 to 1650, that's the early modern English period in which Shakespeare wrote. And then from that time to the modern time, actually till 1900 is modern English, and from 1900 to the present, it's late modern English. Now, in the 18th century, to ascertain the language and not make it change, they wanted to set rules for the English language grammatically. What they did was look at the French examples and the Latin examples. They translated those into English and gave English examples. Now, just for a few examples, look at those definitions. A noun is the name of a person, place, or thing. So now the definition, which is very accurate for Latin and French, states what a noun is. In other words, the characteristics of the word. The definition of the adjective is a word that modifies a noun or a pronoun. Now, interestingly, since the 18th century, for 250 years, nobody asked the question, why is the definition of a noun what it is, and the definition of an adjective what it does? Now, for example, if I wanted to give the difference between you and me, and I say, you're a female and I'm a professor, that won't do. Because if I say what you are, I must say what I am. If I say what you do, I must say what I do. Now, here the definitions are wonderful for Latin and French, but not for English. And I'm going to give you some examples. I left out the definition of the verb because it applies in both cases. An adverb is a word that modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. All right, now let's look at some examples. The parts of speech, the four parts of speech. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and the pronouns, articles, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. The 9 parts of speech are interesting, but the difference between the first 4 and the last 5 is enormous. The first 5 carry content meaning. They also take morphological endings. In other words, you can give pluralities. You can say man, men, books, going, nice, nicer, adverbs, past, etc. And they cover over 99.9% of the words in English. The other 5 have no content meaning. They are used only for grammatical functions. And they are only about 250 in number. Oh, I dropped it.
That's okay.
Oh,
It
sorry.
happens.
So sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. All right, now look at the modification structure. If we modify a noun, the definition from the Latin and French says that an adjective is a word that modifies a noun or a pronoun. Now, how do we modify a noun in English? You can modify a noun with another noun, like office boy, window pane. We can modify a noun with a verb, like broken glass, running account. We can add, of course, an adjective, tall man, lovely day. And we can modify a noun with an adverb. Our studies abroad, the room upstairs. Abroad and upstairs are adverbs of place. So the definition for Latin and French takes care of only one, the definition of the adjective. The definition of a noun with an adjective. But all parts of speech, the first four parts of speech, can modify a noun. Now, interestingly, let us look at modify a verb, which the definition in Latin and French says only an adverb can modify a verb. In English, you can modify a verb with a noun. It turned yellow. He became president. You can modify a verb with a verb. He came running. He left sobbing. You can modify a verb with an adjective. They flew high. Okay, high is an adjective modifying flew. So you have an adjective modifying a verb. The hinges worked loose, as opposed to the hinges worked loosely. Now, there's a difference in meaning. If you say the hinges worked loose, it means they became loose. They were at one time tight. If you say the hinges worked loosely, it means they were loose. So all four parts of speech, the first four, carrying meaning, can modify a verb. Now let's look at the modify an adjective with a noun. The plane flew high. The plane flew high. High is an adjective that modifies flew. But how high did the plane fly? Sky high, rooftop high, cloud high, etc. So you can have a noun modify an adjective, which cannot happen in French and in Latin. You can modify an adjective with a verb. It's boiling hot. It's freezing cold. You can modify an adjective with another adjective. He is mighty powerful. You can modify an adjective with an adverb, which is in line with the definition. It is exceedingly beautiful. Now, when it comes to the adverb, modify an adverb, in the definition of French and Latin, translated to English, only the adverb can modify an adverb. Now, let us look at these examples. You can modify an adverb with a noun in English. They flew fast. Fast is an adverb modifying flew. How fast did he fly? Jet fast. That's a noun modifying an adverb. You can modify an adverb with a verb. The child is creeping slowly. But this is in opposition to the child is creeping slowly. The intonation here makes a difference. If you say the child, the second example, the child is creeping slowly, it means as he is creeping, he is slow. But notice the intonation. The child is creeping slowly. Creeping slowly. It means how slow is he coming? Creeping slowly. All right, so in other words, you cannot tell the difference in meaning from the writing. It's only the oral intonation that will give you the difference in the meaning. To give you other examples, I use a walking stick. Now, I use a walking stick. Same intonation as up here. A walking stick. If I say I use a walking stick is a stick that walks. I don't use a walking stick. I use a walking stick. That's the difference in meaning over here. And so you can have he is dashing fast. Same example. If you say he is dashing fast, fast modifies dashing. But if you say he is dashing fast, dashing is modifying fast. With an adjective, I don't have an example. With an adverb, which is according to the definition, he worked exceedingly fast. Now, with these examples, it just shows, this is just one example to show that the definitions of Latin and French in the 16th and 17th centuries, which were translated into English in the 18th century with some examples, is very unfair for the English language, because the modification structure in English is very, very rich. And those examples cannot happen in French and in Latin. So, unfortunately, the grammar books that are being taught in schools now refer to those definitions. Now, I have published 4 grammar books myself in English for high school students. And although some linguists might say, don't call them noun, verb, adjective, and adverb, I felt when I wrote my books that those words are known internationally. All over the world, they use those words. But I don't use the definitions. So I say a noun can modify a noun. And a noun can modify a verb. A noun can modify an adjective. A noun can modify a verb. So I talk about the modification structure using those words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, without the old definitions, because the definitions make it very limited. So when they translated, for example, the definition of an adjective as a word that modifies a noun, they gave an example like, he's a nice boy, she's a tall girl, which fitted. But what about all the other examples that don't fit the definition? Now, some teachers I have observed in many parts of the world, if you say he is an office boy, they would say, oh, of course, office is a noun used as an adjective. But now a noun used as an adjective is just to justify the definition. But I say to my students and ESL students that they should make a distinction between the characteristics of a word and its functions. In the definition of the noun, you have what it is. The noun is a name of a person, place, or thing. Definition of an adjective is a word that modifies. Well, now, if you talk about characteristics, let's just talk about characteristics. If we're talking about functions, let's talk about functions. And so the old definitions which fitted Italian and French somehow are a little unfair to English, because the modification structure, at least, is quite different. Now, there are other examples that I give from other definitions and other explanations of French and Latin, which don't fit in English, but I just thought I'd give those examples to indicate that the definitions are rather unfair to the English language. Are there any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. You have a question?
Well, I'm not sure I get the creeping slowly.
Again, please.
I'm not sure I understand the distinction between the two versions of creeping slowly.
It's the intonation. If you say, he is creeping slowly, if you say it this way, he is creeping slowly, slowly modifies creeping. But if he's creeping slowly, how slowly is he moving? Like creeping slowly. So it's the intonation that makes the difference. Just like the walking stick, just like a drinking fountain. You don't get water from a drinking fountain, because a drinking fountain is a fountain that drinks. But a drinking fountain is a fountain from which you can get a drink. Now, there are some cases where the distinction is very, very clear, where both can work. For example, moving as a word and van. Now, a moving van is a van that's moving, but a moving van may be stationary. You get the point?
Yes,
all right,
you.
all right. Those examples apply exactly here. It's the intonation that makes the difference. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.